Hi, so welcome to the third video on introducing p5.js and some simple JavaScript. Now, to recap, we had, let's just delete some stuff here. This is, where were we last time? We were somewhere around here. We had we were looking at some system variables. We had one where you could move mouse X, and I think last time we had mouse Y in as well. And we had a sort of simple drawing program, didn't we? The drawing program requires that we remove the background. So I can delete this line, or I can just hit // right? So now we've got a drawing program in here. And there we go. Now what did I just do there? So I hit // Now that is something called a comment. So if you put // at the beginning of a line, it basically comments that line out. That's a weird phrase. So originally, // or really what it's for is for saying the line below draws a circle. Now that is genuinely a comment. I'm making a comment about a line. Because I've got // this stuff here doesn't do anything. If I didn't have the comments in, I'll get an error saying, what's going on at line 8? None of that is JavaScript, so it's getting really confused. // means it doesn't do anything with that line. It's just a comment. So comments are very, very useful in JavaScript. I really encourage you to write comments to say, below I'm doing this, and here I'm doing something, and this does that, because it's really useful for you in 6 months' time when you come back to this and you think, well, what was I doing? But the other thing a comment can do is just stop a line happening. So this background now doesn't happen, and if I delete the comments, it does happen. That's handy because you can sort of save stuff. I can save that background for later. Anyway, this is where we were last time. We've made a fantastic drawing program. So the other thing we did last time was we had a variable in. So we had a thing called x position in. And let's make that 200. Put the y value in the middle and make this x position, which initially is going to be 0. It's where we were last time. And here we want I want to increase it. So I'm going to put the background back in as well for good measure. X position equals x position plus 1. That's made it move. Right, that's great, and it's moving, and eventually it'll go off the screen and I'll lose it, which is a pain because I want it to come back again. I don't know why, just do. How do we make it come back? Now, for it to come back, I have to sort of say, well, when it gets to somewhere, I want it to come back to the beginning. Now, there's a thing called a conditional statement, and a conditional statement, there's a few of them. One of them is if. So what we could say is, if the circle has gotten off the edge of the screen, give me it back again. So within that, there's some more questions. How do we know if it's got off the edge? What do we use to figure that out? Now, you might figure out there's a few ways we know what the edge of the screen is. We know that, for instance, our canvas is 400 pixels wide by 400 high. So you should know that the edge of the screen is 400 pixels. So if the x position is bigger than 400, it's got to the edge. And also we know what this x position is. We know that it starts at 0 and it gets bigger by 1 on every loop of this draw function. So, but how do we know exactly what it is? And I'm going to show you a way of figuring out what a number is, and it's a really useful way of sort of evaluating what's going on. There's a thing called console log. Now, you can see down here is a thing called console. That's kind of handy. We've got this thing, and every now and again an error comes up in here when I type something weird. Like if I just type some letters there, it's going to say I don't know what DSF means. So, but we can actually stick stuff in there. If we write console.log and then open some parentheses, which is just your brackets. In coding language, they're called parentheses. Let's write x position, and then close the parentheses and stick a semicolon. It's now logging what this value is. You're not getting every single one because it's happening so quickly, but let's hit play again. It starts at 0, and as it moves across, in the middle it'll be about 200, and as it goes off the screen, you can see this number down here gets above 400 and it's gone. So that makes sense, right? We know that X position starts at 0, and that's what's making the circle move in the first place. So this console log is a really good thing for debugging. Now, debugging is where the word exists to get rid of bugs, debug. It's also good to figure out things. So debugging might be getting rid of an error, but it can also mean just trying to sort of find out what's going on and how to solve a problem. Now we need to get into the conditional. So let's write a conditional statement. Now I want to point something else out. If you Google many of these things I'm telling you about, there's some really good resources out there. So I'm just going to Google conditional statement. Well, let's not write it up there. Let's write it so you can see it. Okay, conditional statement, and it's doing it off the top of the screen, so you can't really see it. But okay, so it tells you what it is, and what you'll probably find is some Wikipedia stuff and all that kind of thing. But let's add a word, JavaScript. And the first place you generally get to is W3 Schools. Now this is a website you should know about. It's really good. It's got tutorials on all kinds of things. So if we go to that, it goes to JavaScript, if, else, and else if, right? And these are conditional statements. And use if to specify a block of code to be executed if a specified condition is true. That's one we're going to use, right? And the other ones do stuff as well. So this is a good place to read through. And the really nice thing about W3 Schools, you can go try it yourself, and you can go in here and you see there's a bit of HTML, and then on this side is what's happening. It's very similar to our editor, and I can change this and do that. Now, you can change stuff and then hit run and it'll change. You know, this is all good, but I don't really want to get into why, you know, how date works and what the hell this means and all this other stuff. You know, this is a little bit too complicated, and I'm a visual person, so however, reading this will really help you. It's a really good thing. I want to show you another link that was back there. If we scroll down, these are all W3 Schools. It's got so many good pages on this. Developer.mozilla.org. Now, Mozilla have basically written the book, literally written the book on JavaScript. So if you go to their documentation, they'll have the most up-to-date documentation, which is almost the official place to find a lot of JavaScript stuff, right? So, you know, this is getting into some more technical detail. It talks about ternary, that's another thing, but this will also give you some really good stuff. I mean, I might just want to go into here and just type in if. What does that do? If, else. Right, that's possibly where I should have been looking, but this is also this is the kind of official place you can find a lot of this stuff. W3 Schools is more of a tutorial place. It's really good as well. But I'm going to show you how to do it. So, look, we've got up to 2020. I have to say, that circle's gone off the screen here, but it still exists. You can see it still exists because it's sort of at 2,400 and something pixels over there. Now, for now, I'm going to comment this out. And let's put something down here. So, the way you write an if statement is like this. You say if, and then in the brackets, we need to do some decision making. So something's going to go in those brackets. And then, and the reason I call them parentheses is because these brackets are called parentheses, because there are more than one kind of bracket. We're going to use them all. Well, in JavaScript you will use them all. We're going to use a couple of them now. These are curly brackets. Yet to find a more posh name for them, but let's call these brackets and curly brackets. Or parentheses and curly brackets. So what happens is we put the word if, ignore the error here for now, and then in here we're going to write our conditional statement, and then down here we're going to say what to do if that statement is true. So that sounds more complicated than it is. So what we could do here, we could say exposition. So if exposition, well, see, now it works. So why does that work already? We haven't even done anything. You know, we just said if exposition. So what's happening now is it says this thing exposition exists, right? So if exposition, yes, there is an exposition. I mean, it doesn't help us much, but we can do something a bit more clever in here. So let's say if x position is greater than 400, that'd be a really good thing to know. Or if it's equal to 400, we want to get it back to the beginning. So what we want to do in here is put x position equals 0. Now that's going to get it back to the beginning. Right now it's just stuck there, so we're just saying if x position equals 0. Now x position exists, so we said if x position exists, make it 0. So it's always 0. Basically it kind of resets this thing. Let's say if x position is equal to 400. Now 400 is over here, so that sounds good. So if we put equals 400, now that seems to do something wrong. So if you put 1 equals, it is not saying if x position is equal to 400, make it 0. It's saying x position equals 400. It's trying to make it equal to 400. And you see there's a little line there, a little squiggly line. When I hover over that, it says expected a conditional expression and instead saw an assignment. So we've assigned x position to 400. If you want to say is equal to, we put 2 equals. You can also put 3 equals, which means a slightly different thing. But so now when it's equal to 400, it's going to make it 0, and there it goes back again. So these conditional things in here, what are they? Well, there's a few. So again, like we could go and have a look for them. So let's say if statement JavaScript. What we need to search for are the operators. So that's if statement operators JavaScript. Now what an operator is, it's the bit in the middle. Right, here we go. So I talked about the double equal means equal to. And there's a triple one as well. We're not going to get into that. Now I've got exclamation mark equal to. Equal means not equal. So it's basically the opposite of equal to. And again, there's a double equal. Now this is greater than, and this is less than. And this is greater than or equal to, and this is less than or equal to. These are all called the operator. Now they're really useful. So what I'm doing here is if this equals 400, it's going to set it back to the beginning. The only problem with this, let's put 11 here. I'm going to add 11 every time. Right, it went off the screen but never came back. Well, that's weird. Let's make it 10. And now it's looping. So why doesn't it loop when it's 11? And the reason is because if x position equals 400, we're going to make it 0. But it has to equal exactly 400. Now if we add 11 every time, if you add all that up, you'll notice it never gets to 400. It probably gets to 400 and something. Not sure exactly how many. I mean, let's just do the maths here. So 11 times 40 is 440. So let's make it 38. 418, 32. Okay. 33, 34. See, as each time in the loop it's getting bigger, it gets to 396, and then at 37 loops it gets to 407. It never actually equals 400 precisely. So my loop stops. My loop just doesn't work. So we need to put greater than or equal to. And now it loops. It will loop whatever this value now. As soon as it detects that circle is a little bit bigger than 400, it will loop. Let's make it smaller. Let's make it 3. Okay. So I've just noticed another thing. It loops just before it goes off the screen, and it comes on halfway on the screen. Now that's not very satisfying. Now the thing is, when you draw a circle, it draws it from the middle of that position. So the y value is 200, and it draws the circle around that center point. So, and also our circle is 50 pixels in diameter. So half of that circle, we make it really slow, you'll see, it starts exactly halfway on, and it's going to loop exactly when it's halfway off over here. So what we want to do is add on half the diameter. So what we could do here is add on 25. So 400 plus 25. I could write 425, of course. Now this will ensure it's completely off the screen, but now it's still going halfway on. So I need to say x position is minus 25. You see, it actually started on, didn't it? That's because we made the start position is still 0, but now it starts perfectly behind the screen and will leave when it's perfectly off the screen, which is a much more satisfying thing. Now, what we should have done as well is made this minus 25 up here. So now it starts on behind, goes off the screen. So what we've done now is made a looping animation using a variable, and we've done our first conditional statement, an if statement, down here. So this is a bit of dynamics, right? We've made the circle move in a dynamic way. It's moving, that is dynamic. What we've also done is we've done some logic. Now, logic is conditional statements are a type of logic. It's maybe an algorithm. You know, we've said if something happens in the future, we're going to respond to it, and that's the logic. So this is more or less now the main things you will do in JavaScript. Play around with variables, respond to inputs, such as we were playing with the mouse earlier. Also react to conditions. Now let's just tidy this up. Seeing as we're here, we've learned about variables. I want to tidy a few things up. We've got a lot of numbers in here. Now you might notice that it's a bit messy. Now, let's say I want to make this circle 100 pixels in diameter. Now it's bigger, but it's kind of screwed up the way it's going to go off the screen. You'll see that will go off the screen a little bit too soon now. And it comes on as well. It comes on and sticking out over there because this number relies on the diameter of the circle. 25 is not half of 100 anymore. So I think we should put another variable then. This is where variables come in really useful. They allow you to make things modifiable without having to change dozens of numbers all over the place. So let's say let circle diameter equal 100. And instead of writing 100 down here, we're going to copy and paste that down there. Nothing would change yet, but we're setting various variables up here. Now we've said circle position. Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to put the circle diameter first, because what we need to do up here, x position should start circle diameter divided by 2. So that will mean it'll always start off at, and negative that value, because it needs to start off, there we go. You start off at minus 50, so 100 divided by 2 is 50, and we want minus 50, so our circle starts here. And now we've got this bit, so we need to say x position is greater than or equal to 400 plus, we want this number as well, circle diameter divided by 2. So now it should start on behind the beginning of the screen and disappear exactly at half of the circle diameter. And the reset position is wrong. We still say minus 25, so again we want circle diameter divided by 2. And let's put that there, and let's just make it a bit quicker because this is a pain to watch. Right, so now it should silkily go off and come on the screen. Let's make ourselves a bit more room here. So there's another variable, circle diameter, and actually there's another variable we could use. We've still got 400 in there. Now what happens if I say, no, I want my canvas to be smaller, I want it to be 300? Well, now it takes a while to come back on the screen because the canvas is wrong. Or if I make it 500, it's going to go off too soon. So how can we replace this? Now there's something in the reference for us here. So let's go to the reference, and I want to find window width. Okay, it's down here. It's under constants and environments. Now I searched in a different way then. If you hit on a PC Command F or a PC Control F or a Mac Command F, it brings up the find thing in Chrome or Safari or I think almost all the browsers, and that enabled me to type in window and it sort of highlighted it. There is also a search up here. I can type in window up here, but I wanted to see where it was on this screen, which is why I did it this way. So under these environment things are more system variables. So what's window width and window height? Let's have a look. Window width. So create canvas, window width, window height. Okay, so it's a system variable that stores the width of the inner window. What does that mean? Well, it means that once we've done the create canvas bit, oh, I just did the wrong thing actually. Yeah, window width is actually something else. So let's just type in window width here. It is a useful one. What that does is it makes my canvas automatically, if I replay it, it makes it automatically the width I've got available here. So if you want to do a full screen thing, like this example I showed here, I typed in window width and window height. It made my canvas full screen. It doesn't go quite full screen in the editor because it actually treats this bit as a screen. So it, which is kind of handy. I'll make this 400 again. There's another one. Another thing I want to look for. Let's go back to the reference. Width. There. This one down here. Now, width is a system variable that stores the width of the drawing canvas. That's the one I wanted. So I've made my canvas 400 by 400. So down here, I can just type in width. And you see it goes pink, which tells me it knows it's a system variable. That value width is the value of your width of your canvas. And height will be the height of your canvas. So now I can change this to 300. And it'll precisely work at 300 now. And we get 200. It'll do the same thing. And I can use my console log just to check what's going on here. So here's my exposition. You can see it going up to, it happens, the problem is this doesn't update quite quick enough. But you can see it's working though. So we get to about 400 and then loop. So what have we learnt here? Well, we've learnt a bit more about variables and how you can have variables for lots of things, but mainly we've learnt about conditional statements. We've made an if statement, and an if statement does a bit of logic. It makes a decision depending on the conditions you've got in here, and you basically are looking at one variable with an operator, in this case greater than or equal to, and then another thing, which in this case contains the width of the screen plus half the circle diameter. So that has got you two fundamental areas of JavaScript, and I think after this there's for loops, and then you've pretty much got everything you'll need for now. And I hope you've also started to see that there are various places on the internet, such as W3 Schools and MSN Web Docs, this is W3 Schools over here, that can really give you an awful lot of help. And there are so many JavaScript tutorials here as well, but they're a bit more kind of text-based tutorials. I'm going to do more visual tutorials. I think they're a lot more fun. Thanks very much. I'll see you in the next video.